Good morning, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to our 4020 Forest Management Practicum presentation. My name is Jacob Wegman, and today, along with my team member, Joe Forstall, we will be presenting our management plan for the University of New Brunswick and Creighton Conservation Forest. So here's just a brief outline of all the information we're going to be going over today. So we're going to introduce the team and give you guys a brief introduction and background to our problem, go through the goals and objectives outlined by our client, how we conducted our inventory methods, and then on to forest results and forest health, as well as our modeling scenarios and a brief conclusion. Here we have all of our team members. Our team leaders were Sandra May Watling and Joe Forstall. Our communications officer, Jacob Haynes. Our time manager and primary editor, Aidan Stevens. Our data management and primary GIS team, Curtis Knott, Sean Hatchie, and Jordan McGilvery. Our equipment and operations manager, Will Raymond. Our primary writers, Kevin Sullivan and myself. And our research and statistics specialist, Ben Stewart. So now on with our project. Here we have a map of the University of New Brunswick Forest, which is located on the south side of the number 8 and Vanier highways, and currently has a total area of 1,342 hectares. Of that total, wetlands make up 311 hectares and are depicted in the blue and white areas on the map. Forest is also divided into green and yellow zones, with the green areas is simply the regular part of the UNB forest, an area we refer to as the general forest throughout our presentation, and the yellow area is known as the Creighton Conservation Forest, or CCF. The UNB forest is used extensively by forestry students at both UNB and MCFT, and is also host to several user groups throughout the year, such as Ducks Unlimited and the Wastawaya Ski Club. So some background on the CCF. The Creighton Conservation Forest is 632 hectares and was set aside for conservation in 2011. It was named after the late Dr. G. Wilfred Creighton, a UNB alumnus who is well known and recognized as a pioneer in modern forest management and conservation practices. The CCF was delineated in order to capture as much of the area's wetlands as possible while maintaining a single parcel of land. The hope of the CCF was to have a better protected piece of land, ensuring that the area would be safe from development, and is currently used along with the rest of the UNB forest for research, teaching, and recreational purposes. So for our goals and objectives, our client is the UNB's Office of Forest Lands Management, or the OFLM, and is responsible for the proper care and management of the UNB forest. At the beginning of the school year, the OFLM outlined a number of goals and objectives they hoped for us to achieve with our management plan. These goals are firstly divided into short-term goals, which we hope to complete within a 5-year timeline, and long-term goals, which we hope to achieve over the course of an 80-year planning horizon. Both the short and long-term goals are then further divided into social, environmental, and economic values. So our short-term goals focus on improving the safety and functionality of the UNB forest. For goal 1, we want to ensure that our management plan was sensitive to our user groups that use the forest, and advise them as how conditions of the forest might change through our management plan. Secondly, we want to improve safe accessibility throughout the forest. So this involved doing assess road and water crossing and bridge assessments, and any that were found to not be up to code are then ready for repair within the next 5 years. Our third goal was to improve forest growth and promote teaching opportunities. So this would be done through conducting multiple different harvesting and silviculture treatments, which would create a diverse forest structure for students to study in real time in the real world. And then our fourth goal was to improve the appearances of the main entrances along Knowledge Park Drive, as these areas feature quite a bit of litter, and we'd like to clean those areas up if possible. So for our short-term environmental goals, these focus on just improving the longevity of the forest and its habitat function. Firstly, for goal 5, we want to obtain Canada Target 1 recognition for the CCF, and in order to do this, we're going to need to develop a method of long-term legal protection for the CCF. Goal 6 was to preserve sensitive habitats. This was done by identifying areas through our inventory and outlining them in ArcGIS and establishing a buffer around these areas in order to protect them from any harvesting operations that might be conducted. Goal 7 was to improve the species composition of the entire forest. This is done by reducing the amount of balsam fir, which is our most abundant tree species in the forest, and is also quite sensitive to climate change. And along with that, we want to increase the density of our desired species, such as white pine, red spruce, and sugar maple. Goal 8 was to improve our water crossing infrastructure. So again, using the assessments done during our inventory and data collection, and improving any water crossings that need repair. Our short-term economic goals really just focus on generating income via multiple streams to reduce the upfront cost of all the road and water crossing repair that will need to be done. So we wanted to generate funds via harvesting operations, acquire funding from the YSC Marketing Board, look into obtaining funds via carbon credits, as well as any government grants or programs. Our long-term goals, again, are to be worked on over the course of an 80-year planning horizon. For our social goals, we want to establish zones for research and long-term studies, as well as harvesting operations, and ensure that there's adequate areas for each of these activities. For our long-term environmental goals, we want to continue to preserve habitat area and increase the carbon storage of the forest. And so for our long-term economic goals, we want to ensure our operations plan continues to improve the growth and productivity of the forest, and we're aiming for cost-neutral harvesting operations. For our inventory methods, we inventoried tree-level data with a 2 BAF angle gauge, and also collected site data such as ground vegetation and drainage. This is also when we conducted our road and water crossing assessments. For our stand delineations, we needed 80% or more of a single species or tree class in order to identify the stand as such. So for our inventory, we had balsam fir stands in tolerant hardwood, and softwood stands. Any stands that did not meet the 80% requirement were then delineated as mixed wood stands. And as you can see by the map, the orange, yellow areas are all mixed wood stands. So our forest health assessment included stand development, forest classification, live crown ratios, species composition, and wildlife diversity assessments. For stand development, here we have a map of all the different stands based on their stand development stage. There's very little stand initiation stages, with the majority of them being stem exclusion, understory reinitiation, and old growth. And here we have a map of the areas of all the different stand types within their stand. Here we have a map of the stand areas based on stand type and their stand development stage. For both the CCF and the general forest, the mixed wood stands comprise most of the area. And this table just shows another classification system for the areas of the CCF and the general forest. Two important numbers to look at are the wetlands. So the Creighton Conservation Forest has 238 hectares of wetlands, while the general forest only has 75, and as well as the buffer area. So the general forest has 80 hectares worth of buffers, whereas the Creighton Conservation Forest has none. This is because no operations of any kind will be taking place within the CCF, and so no buffers are needed. Here we just have the inventory data for the different stand types within the stand development stages. Balsam fir had high amounts of volume within the earlier stand development stages, and both the mixed wood stands for the CCF and general forest had high volumes in all stand development stages. Here's the species composition for the CCF. You can see that balsam fir and spruce make up over 50% of the basal area for our trees. And this is continued on into the general forest, where again, balsam fir and spruce make up 50%. For both the CCF and general forest, white birch and red maple round out the top 4 species found. Here are the live crown ratios for the different stand development stages within the different stand types. Stands with a live crown ratio at or below 30% would benefit from interventions as natural mortality begins to occur at these levels. Trees that were measured to assess live crown ratio were chosen using the Big Bath method. For our forest health wildlife diversity, we used pileated woodpecker as a habitat indicator. The CCF had a total of 192 hectares of good or great habitat, and the general forest had 338 hectares of good or great habitat. We also used supercanopy peat trees as another indicator of forest health. These were identified using LiDAR software, and their importance: they support biodiversity and provide nesting habitat. Most of these trees were white pines. And here's just a couple graphs showing the carbon inventory from our data. As you can see, the CCF and the general forest, the majority of the carbon is stored within mixed-wood stands. And again, this is due to the high proportion of mixed-wood stands within the entire UNB forest. The CCF had a total of 97,000 metric tons stored, and the general forest had 142,000 metric tons stored. So now I'm going to hand it off to my partner, Joe Forstall, and he's going to talk to you guys about points of interest.
Hi, my name is Joe Forstall, and I'll be looking at the second half of our project. To start, we're going to look at some of the points of interest within the UNB forest. To start off, we're going to look at the Corbrook Falls and the Corbrook Caves. The caves and the falls provide an area for community recreation. This area is used for bouldering or just checking out the beautiful scenery in the area. The caves are an interesting landscape item that provides unique habitat opportunities. Some other points of interest are our cedar stands throughout the forest. We have 4 of them within the UNB forest. Number 4, 39, and 123 are located within the CCF, and stand 76 is located in the general forest. And these 4 stands account for approximately 20% of the BA that's found of cedar in the UNB forest. Cedar stands provide unique area and unique habitat for a variety of species. Some other points of interest are some other stands with high densities of one specific species. Stand ID 27 is a predominantly black cherry stand. Stand ID 29 is a post-fire balsam fir stand. Stand ID 73 is a glossy buckthorn stand, and stand ID 83 is a white ash stand, which comprises of 53% white ash. So for forest modeling, we modeled the UNB forest within Woodstock. We did this by compiling our data into Excel, creating a stand list and tree list, which was then run through OSM and compiled in forest to create our growth and yields. This allows us to project the forest in the future and see where our forest will be at in any time frame. Next, we use the shapefile and the yield files that we produced. We put those into Woodstock and we create a model. Once the model is created, we created 4 scenarios that we built within Woodstock. It should be noted that in all of these 4 scenarios, CCF will be managed as a protected area. So no treatment, harvests of any kind will occur within the CCF. The general forest is going to be managed for our economic, social, and environmental goals. Scenario 1 is our baseline scenario. So there are no treatments that are going to happen within this scenario. We essentially are just looking to see what is going to happen with our forest down the road. Scenario 2, we're looking to maximize our economic goals. So we're looking to maximize our net present value at 4% discount rate, while also having a non-declining harvest yield. Non-declining harvest yield makes it so that the model can't just harvest our entire forest at year 1 and essentially gain the most NPV possible. Scenario 3, we're trying to maximize our environmental goals. So we're trying to maximize our CO2 intake over the management period. We're looking to increase our growing stock of high-value trees by 25% in the first 25 years, while decreasing the balsam fir content by 20% in the first 25 years. So scenario 4 is our trade-off scenario. So we took scenario 2 and scenario 3, which are our max economic and max environmental scenarios, and we combined the best values of each into a trade-off scenario. This is also our recommended scenario to move forward with. So our recommended strategy, as you can see, it provides a stable, operable growing stock, which increases by 10% over our management period. This shows that this scenario does harvest sustainably, while also in the graph below, you can see that our net present value, we are still gaining a good amount of net present value throughout this scenario. With the recommended scenario, we have 3 different types of harvesting. So we are clear cutting, shelter wood harvesting, and select harvesting. And throughout the management period, we're looking to have at least 1 hectare of each harvest type occurring throughout all periods. So now we're going to go through our goals and talk about some of the ways that we ensured that we met these goals. So goal 1 was to ensure our management plan is sensitive to all user groups. So we looked at 3 different user groups, the Maritime College of Forest Technology, the Wastawaya Ski Club, and Ducks Unlimited. MCFT uses the forest for teaching about 110 days of the year. Their main concern is of the development that has happened in recent years on the UNB forest property, but they're otherwise very happy with the forest management to date. One of the requests from our client was to look into whether these user groups would be willing to pay to use the forest. MCFT felt that they are happy with their current deal with the university and would not be willing to pay. The ski club, Wastawaya Ski Club, is made up of about 1,000 members. They're looking for improvements in roads, specifically the Kent Road, and better access at Junction 13. The Wastawaya Ski Club is interested in paying if they have access to trails being used in perpetuity instead of development. Finally, Ducks Unlimited is being used for educational purposes. They use specifically the Corbett watershed, and they have about 60 days of programs that take place for educational purposes on the woodlot. Ooh, can't say woodlot. Gonna have to. I'll just
go from the
restart.
top again if you want.
I'll restart that slide. Yeah. Okay. Resume. So now we're going to be taking a look at all of our goals and looking at how we ensured that we met these goals. To start, we wanted to ensure that our management plan is sensitive to all user groups. We looked at 3 different user groups. To start, we talked to the Maritime College of Forest Technology. They use the forest for about 110 days of the year for teaching purposes. They have a main concern of the development that has happened in recent years on the UNB forest land, but they are otherwise happy with the forest management to date. One of the requests from our client was to look into if these user groups would be willing to pay to use the forest. MCFT is currently happy with their agreement with UNB and would not be willing to pay. Next, the Wastawaya Ski Club is made up of about 1,000 members that use the woodlot in the winter months. They're looking for improvements in roads, specifically the Kent Road, and better access at Junction 13. And they are willing to pay if they have access to trails being used in perpetuity instead of for development. Finally, Ducks Unlimited uses the UNB forest for educational purposes around the Corbett Brook watershed. They use the UNB forest around 60 days for their programs for educational reasons, and they too have a concern for the recent development that is happening on the UNB forest lands. They would not be willing to pay to use the UNB forest as they manage and maintain their own area that they use. Goal 2, so now we're going to look into our road assessment results. So there are about 123 different roads that were assessed. This equates to around 51.9 kilometers. 71 of the 123 different roads were considered to be grown in. Road widths ranged from 1.8 meters to 7.3 meters, and an average of 3.6 meters was found for road widths. One thing that should be noted about the roads in the UNB forest is that there is minimal ditching. Ditching, when it was present, was between 0.2 to 0.9 meters deep. This can cause issues with rainwater and erosion in the area. Grown-in roads could be used as walking trails or ATV access, so they don't all need to be fixed. A couple roads that we looked into that we see as high priority roads are Road 8 due to erosion, Road 32, which passes through a wetland and is rarely used. Our recommendation would be to decommission this road. Road 73, which is causing stream bed disturbance in a fish-bearing stream. Road 115, which has high levels of erosion, and Road 123, which has 2 decommissioned bridges. So now we're going to look at some of the costs. So we have a total of 52 kilometers of roads that we're recommending need some maintenance. So about 17 kilometers need a full rebuild, 4 kilometers need to be graded or brushed, and 30 kilometers need to be graded. The associated costs based on the kilometers needed to be fixed is below, and we're looking at a approximate total of $48,000 worth of costs. So for goal 3, we're looking to improve our forest growth and promote teaching opportunities. As I said before, with our recommended scenario, we're looking at a 10% increase of our growing stock. This ensures that we are sustainable harvesting with this scenario. We also looked at 3 different types of harvesting that we represented in our model. This ensures that there will be lots of teaching opportunities throughout the management period. Now looking at goal 4, we're looking to improve the appearance of the main entrances. So we noticed that there were higher levels of litter in these areas, and our original idea was to place garbage bins at these locations. The issue that we realized once we talked to facilities management was that they shared the concern of these areas becoming dumping sites. Essentially, people who missed garbage day or had garbage that they needed to get rid of quickly could use these sites to dump their garbage. This would increase our costs by having to collect the garbage and dispose of the garbage. This would also increase our costs by having to do regular check-ins on these areas. Looking at goal 5, so we were looking to obtain Canada Target 1 recognition. Canada Target 1 is a federal target that is set to conserve 17% of the total Canadian land area by the end of 2020. In 2015, they had a total of 12.1% of the Canadian land in this recognition. We did not get this within the scope of our project, but we do have recommendations to get closer to this recognition. One of the recommendations is that we look at getting a Class 2 protected natural area for the CCF. This ensures that this will be protected for a long period of time, and this is done under the New Brunswick Protected Natural Areas Act. We cannot go for a Class 1 protected natural area because of the high public usage within the CCF. This can be done by contacting the Minister of Natural Resources and the Lieutenant Governor in Council. So goal 6, we're looking to preserve our sensitive habitat. So we set a 30-meter buffer on all watercourses to preserve all the watercourses within the UNB forest, as well as we recommend putting a 80-meter buffer on all sensitive habitats. These can range from birds' nests to bear dens. Goal 7, we're looking to improve our species composition. So in doing this, we're looking to lower our pure stand balsam fir volume. We're looking to do this with the pure stand balsam fir volume specifically because it is more susceptible to spruce budworm outbreak. So with our recommended scenario, the current balsam fir volume is about 4,000 meters cubed. Our recommended scenario can bring this down to 2,500 metric cubes by the year 25. Our desired species volume, our desired species is made up of sugar maple, yellow birch, red spruce, and white pine. However, for this graph, we are just looking at sugar maple and yellow birch, as red spruce will be planted throughout the management period, and white pine is has a great seed source due to our super canopy trees. So our desired species current volume is at 3,925 meters cubed, and with our recommended scenario, we're looking to get 12,500 meters cubed over the 25-year plan. Goal 8, so we're looking to improve our water crossing infrastructure. We located 5 different high priority water crossings, specifically 6, 19, and 20 were water crossings on fish-bearing streams with high levels of erosion. Next, water crossings 14 and 16 had high levels of erosion and they were in high traffic areas. In total, we're looking to replace 15 of these water crossings over our management period, and we're looking at a cost of $92,000 to replace all of these water crossings. Goal 9, we're looking to minimize our management costs through multiple financial streams. The first way that we looked at this was through carbon credits. Carbon credits simply are not feasible at this time. UNB as a whole emits around 9,000 tons of carbon, whereas the UNB forest and the Noonan forest combine for about 2,700 tons annually. This is less than 1/3 of the required storage to reach. If carbon credits were to be looked at in the future, UNB as a whole would have to bring down their carbon emissions in order for this to be feasible. Next, we looked at environmental trust funds, and the UNBF falls into 3 categories of protection, conservation, and education. And we feel as if this will be a great source of financial gain for our costs. Next, we're looking to reinvest our revenue from harvesting and silviculture and use it to further our operations plan. So we're looking at period 4 or year 20 of our operations plan to cover all costs if all of the money from harvesting is reinvested into our operations plan. So goal 10 is to establish zones. So we looked at a triad zone establishment, 50% of which will be protected. This will be done in the CCF as it is already a protected area. Next, we're looking at a 20% matrix throughout our management period. This includes our shelter wood and our select cutting, which will be a continuous cover management in this matrix. We're looking at 30% of intensive management, so this will include clear cutting and planting. As you can see, I have put the stumpage values in our presentation to show the difference between the whole forest stumpage and the general forest stumpage. This shows why the boundary on the CCF is where it is and why we are protecting that area. That area has way more wetlands and there just isn't the stumpage value for harvesting in the CCF. So some potential threats for our management plan. To start off, spruce budworm. It's happening in 30-year rotations. And due to our forest having a huge content of balsam fir and spruce, which is around 49%, this poses a huge threat on our management plan. Chemical spray applications simply won't be an option because we are so close to municipalities. Next, beech bark canker. It's a fungal infection and needs to be managed specifically for trees that do not already have the infection. Although beech bark canker is a great teaching opportunity, and it introduces old growth features into stands that are not old growth. Next, we have glossy buckthorn, which is an invasive shrub. It affects our biodiversity and vigor of our native species. It's very common in our regen and found very much in our understory. Possible management opportunities are through continuous cover forest management, as well as using pre-commercial thinning to get rid of it. Next, we have emerald ash borer. This is specifically for one of our unique stands, stand 83, which is a 53% ash occupied stand. And this is a potential hotspot for emerald ash borer, and it could simply kill this population. So our overall goal for the forest is for it to be managed in a way that enhances teaching opportunities while staying cost neutral. It should be stated that the CCF needs to be permanently protected, as many stakeholders have this at a high interest, as well as the CCF has a huge value with its abundance of wetlands and unique stands and unique habitat, while providing ecological value to the community. Some acknowledgements for our management plan. We'd like to thank Jason Golding and Storm Robinson. They were huge. They played huge roles in helping us complete this management plan. Ed Sherwinski from the CCF committee. Grant Version, we can't thank enough for his help on our model. Heather Loomer from the government of New Brunswick. Dr. John Kershaw, who aided our methods and procedures. Chris Henniger, who helped us with our forests and our yields. And Brad Nason and Danielle Smith, who helped give us some information on carbon credits. This time, we'd like to invite any questions from the audience. Thank you.